Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Anywhere Uni live podcast. I'm delighted to be with Chiara from Trinity College Dublin in Ireland today. Hi, Chiara. How are you doing?
Hi, Alban. Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing great.
Well, it's good to have you on the podcast. We've been doing this podcast for a year and a half now, and I think it's the first time we have someone representing a university in Ireland. So it was time. So I'm really glad you could join us, and we're really happy to start with Trinity College. Why would student be interested in Ireland? Is it the only English speaking country, official English speaking country in the EU now that the
Yes, let's say that after Brexit, we are one of two, um, because officially Malta also has English as an official language, but obviously we are a fully English-speaking country and a fully English-speaking university, and as such, there's many reasons why students would consider Ireland. I feel like very often. Um, for some reason when they think study abroad opportunities their minds go immediately to the UK or maybe the US or even other European countries and they don't really consider Ireland, but it's such a pity because it's a lovely country, safe, friendly, welcoming. I myself am not Irish, as you might have noticed by my name and my accent. I am originally Swiss, from Switzerland, so I also decided to come here, and I can only confirm that it's very welcoming. It's known for its bustling cities and beautiful countryside, for its world class academic excellence, of course, as well, and also for the multitude of skilled jobs opportunities that you can find in Ireland. We're known across different sectors for offering many job opportunities, for example, notably IT, banking, business, but also tourism and hospitality and so many other sectors. And as such, since we attract so many talents from all over the island and the world, we offer a diverse, dynamic, and multicultural society. So that's for Ireland in general. And then we can get into the nitty gritty of why you would want to consider Trinity specifically.
it's a big hub. I think I believe Ireland, right? For some of the even big tech companies, even from the US, they have headquarters in Ireland.
Exactly. There's so many tech companies. Dublin specifically has been named the European Silicon Valley or the tech and innovation hub of Europe. So, because of all the job opportunities that it offers, Dublin has also been named UNESCO City of Literature because it has a really long history and tradition in that sector as well. So, it's known for many different reasons. So, if you're interested in STEM, in health sciences, or even in humanities and arts, it's definitely a great study destination. Yeah.
I think maybe one thing that seems surprising, it's because it's a smaller country. You don't have that many universities because when we compare to the US, they're like we have thousands of universities. In the UK, they have hundreds, maybe of universities, and I feel like in Ireland, it's a much more, at least for you know traditional universities, it's a much narrower group.
Yeah, we're a smaller country, obviously, even smaller than Switzerland, where I'm from, and it's already quite not for being a small country, even in Europe. But there's only a few dozens universities. But by the way, if you think about it, Dublin is home of a great number of those. So it's a very bustling, dynamic, and young city because it hosts so many of our universities as well. And obviously, they're all known for their academic excellence. Like Trinity specifically was founded in 1592, so we have 400 plus years of experience in education, teaching, and research alike. And we pride ourselves in offering a unique, innovative, and life changing experience to our students in our beautiful historical campus that you can see in my back here. But obviously, other universities also specialize in different disciplinary areas. So there's plenty of things to choose from if students are interested in coming to Ireland. to study. At Trinity specifically, we have hundreds of programs at bachelor and master's level. So obviously, I won't be able to mention them all, but they're mainly divided into three faculties: the Faculty of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, where students can obviously specialize in history, languages, humanities, but also business, law, political sciences, for example. And then we have a Faculty of STEM, that you all might know stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Maths. And last but not least, we also have a Faculty of Health Sciences. So students interested in pursuing medicine, dentistry, nursing, or other professions in the health sciences can also come to Trinity for that.
Yes, so we'll dive deeper into each of those and later. But can international, like non Irish student, apply to any of these faculties? Are they eligible for any of these programs, or do you have some programs where international students can't access, which is the case sometimes in some countries for medicine, for law, for dentistry? Do you have some restrictions in some programs?
No, at bachelor level, everybody can apply. At master's level, we have a few restrictions because, in some cases, especially in the health sciences and in education, for example, some courses are very practice oriented and meant for students with a professional background in Europe to access those professions. And obviously, in that case, for example, non-European students can't apply to them, but it's mainly at master's level that this happens. At bachelor level, we um, welcome students and applicants from all over the world.
And so, how big is the university? I've been on campus, beautiful campus, amazing library, very famous library. Do you have only one centralized campus? Do you have multiple campuses? And how many students are in total do you have?
Well, being as old as we are, we're lucky to have a very beautiful historical campus that is located in the city, in the heart of the city, actually. So as soon as you leave the gates, you're in the middle of Dublin City. But that also means that we can't really expand too much. It has its pros and cons to be so centralized. So there are a few departments that had to outsource a little bit, especially medicine. But this is also because we have collaboration agreements with local hospitals where our students do their internships and practical modules. So obviously there are a few exceptions to the rule, but mainly we are located in the heart of Dublin City, and this is where the campus life happens. We currently have almost 23,000 students. We grew quite significantly in the last 5 to 6 years. I remember before I started working here, we had 17,000 students. So in
Oh,
just
wow.
years' time, yeah, we literally grew quite significantly. And they're coming from all over Ireland and the world. Like, generally speaking, I would say around 35% of our student population comes from outside of Ireland. And this international feel to the campus is not only due to the student body, but also to our faculty and staff members, myself included, obviously, that come from all over the place. So it's a great way to be studying. It's a great place to be studying in a diverse, dynamic environment that takes into consideration different points of views.
Yeah, 35% of international students is a nice number. And you have, I guess, a lot of EU students, but also students from anywhere.
Yes. So when it comes to worldwide, obviously our biggest partnerships are with the US, China, and India. When it comes to Europe, France is on the top of the list, but also Germany, the UK, Italy, Spain, and lately a growing number of students from the Netherlands and Greece as well are coming in. So there's a good diversity in our student body for sure.
Could you? I know it's better to visit and to get the feel of it. But could you describe for us what the experience is like? Students might have an idea of how it is in the UK, where you have maybe lower number of hours per week, a lot of independent work, and in terms of class sizes, number of hours per week, what a typical week and academic year would look like in Ireland and at Trinity College.
First of all, maybe I can start saying one thing that it might not be known by everybody is that our bachelor programs are actually 4 years long and our masters are 1 year. So in the end, it's still a 5 year um, pathway, so to speak. But in continental Europe, many countries actually offer 3+2 type of combination. So bachelors are 3 years and masters are then 2. So I just start by saying that if you come here, our bachelor programs are mainly 4 years, and that's why they call them honors degrees, honors bachelor degrees. So your typical week, if you come to Trinity, might vary slightly depending on the course that you choose. Obviously, if you go for the humanities, it might be a bit more theoretically oriented. You will have more classes and less projects, whereas if you do and if you study engineering or nursing, it's going to be more practice oriented. There will be more laboratories, placements, and things like that. So it really depends on the course you choose.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, one thing that I can say is that our students are very active in the classroom and outside. We have 170 student clubs and societies currently, 50 of which are just dedicated to sports. So if students have an interest in sports, for example, we cover practically every sport there is. And the other 120 societies cover all the other topics, such as debate, history, languages, philosophy, cultures, food, and whatnot. So there's plenty of things to choose from. And I honestly don't know any student that isn't in one way or another active in these societies. And they can be as active as they wish to be, because they can just possibly attend an event that they are organizing, or they can even be in the committee of the student society. So obviously there's different levels of engagement that students can decide um, to do.
And quick question, look, about sports. In some countries, like in the US, sometimes students can be recruited by a coach for a university team prior to even getting admitted to the university. Is it some? How is it in Ireland? Do students just apply to the uni and then can get in touch with teams and coaches for tryouts, or is there, for student athletes, for example, is there a way to get in touch before the admission process?
There is not necessarily a privileged pathway for athletes, but we do, for example, offer a sports scholarships. So if someone who is active in sports and they're playing at international level is interested in coming to Trinity, I would definitely suggest getting in touch with our team, because it's not only in terms of financial aid that we're going to help them, but it's also in terms of tutoring and accommodation, etc. So there's different perks attached to, for example, the sports scholarship specifically, but there's no other real advantage in or priority boarding system for those students in that sense.
And so, in terms of the experience during the 4 years, would students have the opportunity to do an exchange, to do internships, or even co-op program? The answer, because you have such a large university, might be depends on the programs. But what can you tell us about that?
Yes. So when it comes to mobility, 99% of our programs offer the opportunity to go for a semester or a full year abroad. Usually, since our programs are 4 years, that happens during the student's third year of studies. We have currently almost 600 collaboration agreements with universities worldwide under the Erasmus umbrella in Europe and under the study abroad umbrella in the rest of the world. When it comes to placements, we do also offer those. Many of our programs have integrated placements and internships. They're mainly in the areas of engineering, computer science, um, pharmaceuticals, medicine, and business and law. So these are mainly the areas where students can do an internship as well. Obviously, students who don't have a curricular internship, they can still decide to do something during their summers and things like that. But obviously, it's a different type of experience. In any case, these are recognized by the university. And again, an exchange abroad is also possible.
All right, and so even non-EU students will have the same kind of opportunity.
Yes, obviously they will be restricted by visa requirements. So they will have to make sure that they can do their internship in case abroad, for example, or their semester abroad in case they decide to do so. But obviously, it's open to them as well. Yeah.
How does it work in terms of tuition fees? Do you have different type of tuition fees depending on if you're from Ireland, if you're from the UK, if you have an EU passport, or is it about the residence in the EU? If you come from abroad, how does it work for students to figure out in what category they're going to be?
It's an excellent question, and I will probably have to talk a little bit about the system in Ireland because people be familiar with it. So in Ireland, application procedures are based on tax residency rather than citizenship per se. So to understand how you have to apply and which type of tuition fees will apply to you, you will have to define your status. In Ireland, there's only two types of statuses. So you're either an EU candidate or a non-EU candidate. When we say EU, by the way, we include all the EU member states, but also other countries, such as, for example, Norway, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, the UK as well. So it's important to understand that we're not only including EU member states, but also these countries. That means that whether you're Irish, British, Italian, or Portuguese, it doesn't really matter. You're all in the same category of EU candidates.
Okay.
Everybody else is categorized as non-EU. And obviously, then the type of pathway they have to take to apply, and also the type of fees that they will be liable for, is going to be different. So, at an undergraduate level, students that qualify as EU fee status will have to apply not to the university of their choice necessarily, but through the Central Applications Office, also known as CAO. And this is a nationwide system that will allow all European students, including Irish, by the way. So, because everybody thinks that Irish students apply in one way and then Polish students in another, but actually all applying the same way through the CAO. This is a system mainly based on final degrees and transcripts. So there's not much else that they have to prepare to apply through the CAO. So on one hand, it's a very straightforward system, but on the other hand, it doesn't really take into consideration many other things. Like if a student is a good student, but not an excellent student, but has other things to bring to the table, unfortunately, it's not going to be taken into consideration as much. Non-European students, on the other hand, will be able to apply directly to the university of their choice. And the selection process is a bit more holistic in that case, because we do require a number of different documents from them. So we will require their CV, their recommendation letters, their personal statements, and their predicted grades, or test scores if they have them. So it's a bit more of a complex system, but also a bit more comprehensive, so to speak. When it comes to fees, which are still attached to the same type of categorization, there's actually three categories of fees. So if a student is both an EU tax resident and a citizen of all the countries I mentioned before, then they can actually qualify for the Irish Free Fees Initiative, which means that it's the Irish government that pays the tuition fees for them, and they're only liable for the student contribution, which is currently €2,000 per year. If students are EU tax residents but not citizens, for example, they have a Singaporean passport but they live in Germany, well, they will still be liable for EU fees, but they will have to pay them. So it's not going to be the government that takes care of the fees. And these are generally speaking between 5,000 and 9,000, depending on the program that they choose. And if unfortunately they qualify as non-EU fees, in that case, they're liable for full non-EU tuition fees. And those are generally between 17 and 27,000 per year. So there's a big difference between the three categories.
And so the category, does it have to be where you live at the moment, or is it about how many years you spend in the EU? Or, for a student, let's say that for the final year or final 2 years of high school, they had to move to Dubai, but they're French, they always lived in France. would they still qualify as EU even if they kind of left the EU for the last year or two?
So no, they would still qualify as EU fee status. So there's two main categories. So the tax residents. So that means that, for example, if a student and their family have been living in an EU member state or any of the countries I mentioned before for at least 3 out of the 5 years prior to their admission to Trinity, for example, even if they have a different passport, they can still qualify as EU. The other way around also works if students that have a EU passport and have always lived in the EU, but decided to do their final high school years in the US or somewhere else, they will still qualify as EU fee status under the Queen criteria. So they have to have EU citizenship and they have to have completed at least 5 years of education in the EU to be able to still be considered EU fee status. There's also a few other categories of students that fall under this. It's refugee status students and children of diplomats, both EU based abroad and non-EU based in the EU. But again, those are like smaller percentages of people, but all of these people would still qualify as EU fee status. Yes.
Is it the students and the family's responsibility to figure out in which category they belong? I'm sure for 90%, 95% of students, it's very obvious. Based on the passport where they always live. But for families that are very mobile, maybe, is there something they can do to make sure they got the right status that belong to them, and they know, especially because they have to choose whether they apply through the centralized CAO application system or separately? Is it their call, or is there a way to check?
Excellent question. It is their responsibility, but obviously we're here to help them figure it out as well. So I, as the regional manager for student recruitment in Europe and Central Asia, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions of students that might have a little bit of a peculiar situation. Traveled a lot and maybe their parents have different citizenship than their own, etc. We also have a unit called the Academic Registry that manages and assesses applications and is always available for any queries they might have. And of course, the best source of them all is our website. It's very well described. What are the steps to understand if you're one or the other category? So we definitely recommend going on our website and check the eligibility criteria, because it's very important that you know under which category you fall, and as a consequence, how you have to apply to Trinity or any other Irish university for that matter.
Yeah, we should have almost done a two live session, one on the EU CAO application system, and then the other one for international, because now I want to ask you a bit more about this application process. And so I guess we'll go one by one. So let's start with students that would not qualify to apply through CAO. They are not residents and taxpayers of the EU. So for these students, what would the timeline look like? So you said already that they need a CV, letter of recommendation, personal statement, motivation letter. So a bit more pieces. And do they apply through anything centralized or just directly to Trinity? And if they're interested by another university in Ireland, they have to apply separately to that university with a different process, maybe different deadlines. How does it work?
That's exactly how it works. For Trinity specifically, we always open applications in November, and the window to apply is very long. Generally speaking, our undergraduate programs application deadlines are in June or July. So literally they have
The
8
whole year?
months almost, yeah, to apply. And obviously, in that case, they will have to apply through our website. There's a link on every single course page. For example, they're interested in studying history or studying law at Trinity. They can go on the course page for that specific program. And on the bottom, they will find the link to start their application. If they apply to multiple different courses within Trinity or across the island, they will have to submit multiple applications. So every time they will have to start the process from start, and they will also have to pay the application fee for every single application they send in. This doesn't apply to European students, but we can delve deeper into that later.
So for these students, they would hear. Is there no interviews, no SAT? It's just personal statement, recommendation letter, CV.
It depends on the type of high school diploma that they present. We do accept all European curricula, international curricula such as the IB or A levels or the American curriculum. And then in some cases, we also accept some national ones. So, for example, from China or Russia or Turkey, we do accept specific curriculum. Otherwise, students applying from non-European countries that don't present any of the internationally recognized diploma, they will have to enter Trinity through the International Foundation Program, which is an additional 1 year of studying that will allow them to gain those skills, whether they are linguistic or disciplinary, to actually enter Trinity. And obviously, if they complete that year successfully, they don't need to do anything else. They don't need to reapply to Trinity. They gain direct access to our programs after completing that year. So there is also this to consider. If you're a non-EU student applying with an internationally recognized curriculum, you can access our programs directly. If you don't, there's the International Foundation Program for you.
And so for these students, they could hear back from Trinity within a few weeks or months, or is there a specific date in the summer after the closing of the application?
So applications are assessed on a rolling basis, and we do send out conditional and firm offers. So if someone is still studying, for example, so we don't really have their final degree yet, but they are a promising candidate, we will assess their application and send a conditional offer, usually within 4 to 6 weeks from completion of the application. It really depends on the school offering the program, but yeah. Generally speaking, it's a matter of just waiting a few weeks.
Okay, great. And so they send, you need grades from like transcripts. And do you look at the last 2 years, last 3 years, last 4 years of high school?
Usually the last years and predict the grades of the current year that they're attending. If they're presenting an American curriculum, they can also submit SATs or ACTs. So there's plenty of things that they can add to their application to make it more complete and maybe show their extracurricular activities, their voluntary work, and things like this.
When I was in Singapore, I know that for some medical schools, I don't know if it's specific to medical schools in Ireland, students kind of had to go through like I don't know if it was an agency or a specific platform that would support students from that region to apply. Is it something that's specific to medical schools, or is it for some region of the world that international applications can be managed by third parties?
Not for us specifically. I maybe forgot to mention that some courses will require also an interview after selecting the candidate based on their dossier. But for medicine specifically, this is the case for direct applicants. For CAO applicants, it's slightly different because they will also have to take an additional test.
Okay.
Direct applicants will not have to take. So this is also medicine is a little bit of an exception in that case.
Unique, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're a CAO applicant, you will also have to take the HPAT test, HPAT. Careful because this is only offered once a year. So make sure not to miss the deadline for to that, which is January. The deadline to apply for the HPAT is January, and then the exams usually take place in mid-February. Whereas if you're a direct applicant, you will not have to take the HPAT, but there will be other things that will be taken into consideration because, again, it's a different procedure. Another thing I might not have mentioned is that we also offer courses in acting, directing, in collaboration with one of our affiliated school, which is the Lear Academy. And obviously that is also a slightly different process because students will be auditioned in that case because it's a different disciplinary area. So there are a few exceptions to the rule, even within Trinity, but generally speaking, 90% of our courses work the same way. Medicine and acting are the two big exceptions.
And so before we dive into CAO a bit more, one last question in terms of the way you handle applications. Do you have, based on if you're applying through CAO or outside of CAO, would the kind of grades requirements be different because you kind of have a pool of applicants that are international and you will pick a certain number of students from there, and then another one that's the CAO, and therefore the grades required might be different? Or do you have standard grades required for specific programs that are the same across whether you apply internationally or through CAO?
So we do have standardized requirements. So you can find the ones for international students on our prospectus. It's called the Admissions Guide for Non-EU students. And you will find all the bands required for each specific program and for each specific curriculum or high school diploma presented. Since the CAO is mainly based on final degrees, actually solely based on final degrees and results, it tends to be a little bit more competitive in terms of the requirements. So yeah, there is a slight difference in that. But again, it's not arbitrary. It's actually very mathematic. So on our website and also on the CAO website, if you're interested to know how, for example, the French baccalaureate or the German Abitur or the Italian Maturita is converted into CAO points, you can have a look at the country page. We have page for every single country in the world, including France or Morocco or wherever you're applying from. And you will find a very specific table of conversion to understand which qualifications we accept and how we convert them into CAO points. So that's very useful. Of course, this information is also published on the CAO website, but I would always recommend going to the specific university of your choice because there might be slight differences in that because the CAO gives guidelines and then each university applies them specifically for their program. So you don't have to worry about not knowing how this is going to happen because it's very clearly stated and there's table of conversions for every single curriculum. So that makes it a bit easier to understand.
Yeah, to look at how to convert the CAO points required for a specific program. How does that work to convert your own curriculum in IB or high school, US high school diploma or French back into that? Okay. All right. And do you have specific subject requirements for specific degrees or for the three schools where, for example, you would need in the French bac system, for example, the specialty in physics and chemistry and biology, geology, if you want to do medicine, or physics and mathematics if you want to do engineering, or is it just the French bac as a qualification? Or do students have to be careful that they have the right higher level subjects or the right APs or the right specialty subjects?
So to get into Trinity as an European student, there's mainly two qualifications or two entry requirements to keep in mind. The first one being the minimum matriculation requirements, and these are the same for all the courses, whether they're interested in philosophy or physics, they're the same. So students have to present, generally speaking, 6 subjects from their high school diploma, 3 of which usually have to be at higher level because in Ireland there's this distinction between high level and ordinary level. And again, this is very well explained on the country pages, how this is calculated. And then generally speaking, students have to have a pass in English, in mathematics, and in a language other than English. This can be any modern language, such as, for example, French or Chinese or Italian or Russian. So there's many options there. These are the minimum matriculation requirements. And then there is a course-specific requirements and CAO points for European students. And these are very clearly stated on the prospectus as well. So for example, students interested in medicine also have to present 2 scientific subjects on top of the ones I specified earlier. Or if they're interested in doing English studies, they have to present higher level English and things like that. So depending on the program that they choose, there might be additional requirements. Obviously, this also goes for direct applicants, but they won't have to look at CAO points because CAO points only apply to European students. So that's just one less thing to think about.
Okay. And so for the CEO, what are the timelines for students? And so it seems very simple. No CV, no motivation letter, no recommendation letters. Just the transcript, the grades.
Yes. Applications again open in November. There's a standard deadline on the 1st of February that is mainly for restricted courses, for example, in acting, dentistry, etc. Then there's also a late deadline that is coming up. It's on the 1st of May. So students can still apply later on for other courses such as engineering or mathematics or history. And then, since the offers are solely based on final degrees, we have to wait until every single student in Europe has submitted their final degree. And that's why the timeline of the CAO is a bit more problematic on some level. So it's more later in the game. So students only receive their offers starting in late August. So there's 5 rounds of offers from the CAO, and students will receive maximum 1 offer per round, which means that if they're during their first round of offers, because maybe I didn't mention this, but students applying through the CAO can list up to 10 different programs within Trinity or across the country. And that's a good way of having more chances of getting actually something offered. And we always tell them to put their preferences in genuine order of what they would like to do. So if medicine at Trinity is your first choice, definitely put it first and then put everything else underneath. Because if during their first round of offer, for example, they received their third choice, then they can accept it. But everything below on the list will become automatically unavailable to them, whereas higher options will still be there in subsequent rounds. So that's pretty much how it works once the CAO starts sending out offers.
Yeah. So basically, you're gonna get one offer, which is gonna be the highest offer you get on that list. The other ones are going to disappear, and then you can accept it. And in the next round, you might have, if you have a higher offer that opens up, then you can access that.
You can access that later on, yes.
And so you're not forced to only apply to the same subject. We know UCAS, where you have a personal statement that kind of forces students to apply to 5 at least very similar courses. Here, you could apply to 5, 6 different courses at Trinity College in totally different areas. It wouldn't be a problem.
It wouldn't be a problem. No, you could apply to business, languages, mathematics all at once. So there's no restrictions in terms of disciplinary areas or faculties. There's no restrictions in terms of institutions either. So if you're very focused on studying law, for example, you could apply to every law program in Ireland. Or on the other hand, if you are interested in the humanities, for example, but you're not that set on one specific subject, you can actually decide to apply to multiple ones. By the way, one of the peculiar aspects of the Trinity academic offering in the humanities specifically is that we allow students to go for single honors or joint honors. A single honor means that students focus on one specific subject and then they earn a degree in that subject, for example, law or philosophy or religion. And if they go for a joint honors, they can actually combine 2 subjects together and earn a degree, a joint honors degree for both subjects. So, for example, very popular combinations are business and law, or political science and language, or film and music as well. We have computer science and linguistics that also are a very popular combination. So students can actually combine subjects, which is very important nowadays that employers look for graduates that have multiple skills and interests as well. So that's something that students can do. And by the way, through the CAO, they can apply to all of those options. So if they're interested in history, single honors, but also history and languages, they can actually apply to all of those.
And so, how does it work for these students? Because I know it's something when families hear and students that they're only going to hear at the end of August, and maybe if they wait even for a specific offer throughout September. How do students usually do it? Do you have to kind of have Ireland as your first choice and then take a gap year if it doesn't work out, or do students just kind of secure a place somewhere else and then hope to end up at Trinity College? Like, what? How do you see students handling that timeline?
We've seen all of it. So we've students who did accept a second choice in the Netherlands or the UK, but then when they received the offer from Trinity, they actually dropped it. Obviously, those students were willing to maybe even lose a deposit, which is not something that everybody could afford or want to do. So we totally understand if that's not the case. But obviously, if you want to come to Trinity, you will have, or any other university in Ireland in that sense, you will have to be a little bit patient and motivated, unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends on.
Unfortunately, at least you know that students that show up are quite keen.
There have been students who also have waited too long and then it wasn't possible for them to come anymore because of logistical reasons. But we do offer the opportunity to students who have been offered a place at Trinity to defer their place for a year. So if they get the offer too late, but they still wish to accept it, they can actually request a deferral. So that's another option. And in some other cases, yes, they have maybe decided to take a gap year and then try again next year. So we've seen different strategies from students, and we really appreciate their motivation and willingness to actually wait for Trinity and come here. But we understand that it's not always the case, and we understand if students have to make a different choice, unfortunately.
How does it work in terms of accommodations? Because we know in Europe there's some places, some cities where finding an accommodation for students is tough, like Amsterdam and the Netherlands, for example. So the recommendation there is usually the guidance is usually to try to apply early, to secure a spot early, to find housing early. So how does it work for first-year students at Trinity College? Do they only secure their housing in September? Can they look at it before? Do you have student housing, or do they have to find their own?
There's good and bad news. So the bad news first, probably. So Dublin is facing a little bit of a housing crisis. We can't really lie about this. So this is something that, as you mentioned, happens a little bit all over Europe. Unfortunately, big European capitals are facing kind of the same challenges. However, Trinity has Trinity owned and Trinity recommended accommodation options. And even though we cannot guarantee accommodation to our students because we unfortunately don't have 23,000 beds for all of our students, we do prioritize first year and international students alike, even minors. For example, in some cases, in Europe, students might even graduate at 17. So minors are definitely prioritized over other categories of students. So that's the good news. We do have accommodation options and we do prioritize students coming from outside of Ireland. So that's good. Also, another good news is that we open applications in the spring. So students don't actually have to wait until they have an offer from Trinity to be able to apply. CAO students, for example, can apply with their CAO application number. Applications are open right now, so usually between March and May. And application is free of charge. So I would definitely recommend to CAU students who are interested in coming here, even though they don't have an offer yet, to apply for accommodation, because then we do room allocation on kind of temporary
Yeah.
basis. So basically what happens is if someone applies in the spring without an offer from Trinity yet, they might get a temporary offer for a room. And once they then receive an offer from Trinity, they can secure the room, and that's okay. They don't have to worry about it anymore, and that's done in advance. If, on the other hand, they don't receive an offer, or from some reason they realize that they don't want to come to Trinity, or they accept another offer, then their temporary placement in our accommodation will become available again to waitlisted candidates. So even if you don't get the temporary offer for a room at Trinity, don't worry too much, because in September, new allocations will happen based on the wait list. So that's how it works. So definitely apply before you get the offer. Don't worry about it.
All right. So we have a few questions starting to trickle in the chat. One question is about math, because in the French bac system, we have the math specialty that you can take in grade 11, and then in the final year, grade 12, you can either keep that math specialty or go down to a math complémentaire, complementary math. And then you also have the expert math extra option that you can put on top of your math specialty. Do you have specific requirements in terms of math as well? You talked about the sciences earlier, with some courses that could say in business, for example, you need to have at least complementary math or math specialty. Or is it, yeah, how does it work for the math? Would students be able to find exactly what level of math they need, or is it quite open?
Yes, so they will be able to get in touch with the course coordinator or academic registry if they have a very specific question about the entry requirement for that specific course. By the way, I might not have mentioned that the CAO also awards bonus points for maths. So, for example, in the French system, if a student has mathematics grade 11 or better with a minimum coefficient of 16, but only in the épreuve terminale, they will actually gain 25 additional bonus points that they can be added on top of everything else that they earn from their final moyenne at the end of their studies. When it comes to types of math, I would definitely get in touch with academic registry to just check if there's a specific requirement for a specific course. But otherwise, mathematics is going to be accepted. And it's, in some cases, we know that it's normal for some subjects to be examined in the year prior to the final examination. So in some cases, we can also accept courses that have been examined the year prior. So
Yeah. And so basically for any program, even if you want to do philosophy, the fact that you have a math coefficient 16, which is a math specialty in terminal in grade 12, that would give you extra points.
yes,
Okay.
that's regardless of the course that you choose. But
Yeah.
in some cases, especially in STEM, obviously, the higher level maths is actually required. So the 16 coefficient or higher is required for those specific programs. So you will probably have to have it to enter those courses. Yes.
In terms of the English language, do you have specific, what tests do you accept? What kind of level are you looking for? Do you sometimes waive that English language requirement? For example, if you're doing the International French Bac, the BFI, how does it work for English?
So we do require students to demonstrate the level of English, and we do accept quite a wide variety of different qualifications, from the classics, IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, and PTE, but also most recently the Duolingo English test has also been added to the list of things that we accept. And for the French students specifically, if they are presenting the Option Internationale, which now is called the French Baccalaureate National. I think they changed the name lately. Yes, if they do present that type of qualification, they may actually satisfy the English language requirement just by achieving a minimum score in their English language and literature. Yeah. So they don't even have to present an additional qualification on top of that.
Well, all great news. The fact that you accept the Duolingo, which is an easy test to pass at home. That the fact that if you do the BFI International French Bac, you don't have to take a test. That's great. We also had a question, and I wanted to actually ask about that as well. You have a dual degree with Colombia. Could you say a little word about that? How does it work to apply? Is it kind of different? And what's the structure of that dual degree with Colombia in the US?
That's an excellent program. Like Trinity is very highly ranked worldwide. We're currently 87th in the world. I think Colombia is in the 40 something. So they're even it's a very excellent university, very highly regarded as well. And we recently launched this dual BA in collaboration with them. By the way, we also have a dual master's pathway, which I will talk about in a minute. But if students want to study subjects such as, for example, neuroscience, mathematics, but also history, English studies, European studies, music, or is and a film, sorry, film. There's a number of different courses that they can choose from and they can do in collaboration with Colombia. The structure would be the first 2 years in Trinity, year 3 and 4 in Colombia. And then students would actually receive 2 bachelor degrees from both universities, basically at the same time as just completing one. So it's definitely an excellent opportunity there. The application procedure for direct applicants, it's very straightforward on a website. They apply. Again, it's very American in that sense. We do require recommendation letters, personal statements, CVs, etc. If you're an EU fee status student, you will also have to apply through the CAO and through our website. Yeah, so
Oh, both. You have to do both.
yeah. So for direct applicants, it's a bit more straightforward. They just do the direct application. For CAO students, they will have to do both applications and then be accepted by both universities. So it's a bit more tricky for them. But one thing to keep in mind is that the deadline for this is a bit earlier than the CAO regular deadline, which is usually around the 1st or 2nd of January of each year. So if you're interested in the dual BA with Colombia, definitely consider it, but remember to apply a bit earlier than usual. And the dual master's pathway is, by the way, just for engineers in this case, and the structure would be 4+1, so the 4 years in Trinity, last year of studies in Colombia. Then students come back, do their dissertation in Trinity, and then they get 2 master's degrees. But in that case, they will only have to apply to Trinity first, and then in their 3rd year, they can actually apply for the dual masters. So it's something that they can think about later on.
Perfect. So I'm taking a few more questions in the chat. So, how many hours on average of class every week, specifically in the humanities, social science faculty, and what kind of class sizes?
Again, we have, I think, 50 different programs in the humanities, and they really depend what if you're doing law or religion or political science or French, it's going to be very different. The class size and also the hours, but generally speaking, I would say it's around 25 to 30 hours. Also, you have to consider that we have been standardized after the Bologna um, system. So basically, every university in Europe will require students to complete 30 credits per semester or 60 per year. And I don't know if you know that, but that corresponds between 20 to 25 hours of every credit corresponds to 20 to 25 hours of study. So generally speaking, they're very balanced in that sense, because a course that might have more class hours might give you less time for individual study and vice versa. So other programs that might include a bit more individual study might have less class hours. And so it's always very balanced in that sense.
Another question on the dual BA. So, if you do the dual BA, are you pay the tuition fee the way you explained it today for year 1 and 2, and in 3 and 4 you would be paying tuition fees like an American, like a student at Columbia in the US.
Exactly. So obviously the fees are going to change drastically, especially if you're an EU fee status student, because at Trinity you would almost not pay any fees, whereas in Colombia you would be liable for full international fees. However, and this is important to say, both Trinity and Columbia offer scholarship opportunities to their students. So if you're interested in the Columbia dual do a BA program, you might apply for a scholarship and get it. So you would still not have to pay the full $60,000 for your studies at Columbia. And by the way, I really want to highlight this. We do offer scholarship options to all of our students, even the ones that don't pay tuition. So if students still need financial aid or support, regardless of the fact that they don't really pay tuition, we still offer them the chance. So there's scholarship opportunities on our website listed for all categories of students. So feel free to check them out.
Perfect. I think we covered a lot of grounds. I think we've answered all the key questions here. Any other questions? Feel free to pop them in. We're almost at the hour, and I always promise to my guests that we're not going to pass the hour.
Well, it's always a pleasure. If there's many questions, it means that there's much interest. So we're happy to hear that.
That's great, and I learned a lot today. So thank you so much, Chiara, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
All right, perfect. I think we'll conclude there. Thank you so much again. And to everyone that listened, whether you listened through live or through YouTube or through one of our accounts on Spotify or Deezer. Yeah, thank you very much for joining. And we will see you soon on another episode of the Anywhere You Need live podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.